Hello dear first year students, welcome to the course of Phonetics presented by Mr. Aunali Walid and Mrs. Bogufa Zainab. The main goal of teaching English phonetics and phonology is to improve students' pronunciation. As you know, English pronunciation is difficult because there is no consistency between what is written and what is spoken. This is why most students make mistakes when they speak English. Sometimes they pronounce words like when they are spoken in French, especially when the words are not familiar. This is why we teach phonetics in order to improve students' pronunciation through introducing the IPA or the International Phonetic Alphabet in order to get the correct pronunciation of words without finding any difficulty in pronunciation. Well, let's get started. What do you know about phonetics? I think that you have an idea about phonetics since in your secondary school you have seen phonetic symbols in your textbooks. Most of those symbols are not taught for students. In the course of phonetics, we are going to teach them in details in order to improve your pronunciation. Transcription is representing sounds as they are spoken. We do not use the usual alphabet, but we have another alphabet for representing those sounds, which is called the International Phonetic Alphabet. So, in the first semester, you have Introduction to Phonetics, in which we are going to define phonetics and phonology. Then we are going to make a clear difference between phonetics and phonology. Afterwards, we are going to talk about the branches of phonetics, which are articulatory phonetics, acoustic phonetics, and auditory phonetics. Then we are going to show the importance of phonetics for first year students in order to improve their pronunciation. In the second lecture, which is about speech mechanism and speech production, we will introduce the process of producing a sound in our speech mechanism. Then we will introduce speech organs in the vocal tract above the diaphragm, all the speech organs that contribute in the production of language sounds. Starting from the lungs, then we have the mouth cavity and the nasal cavity. Inside the mouth we have the teeth, the upper teeth, the lower teeth, the upper lip, the lower lip, and the different parts of the tongue. Then we have the nasal cavity. That we will deal with the articulation of English vowel sounds in details. We start by defining the vowel sounds, then we are going to show the categories of vowels. Then we have the vowel chart, description of and the articulation of each vowel in details with illustrations and pronunciation of those sounds with IPA transcription. Afterwards, we go to another category of vowels, which is diphthongs. We describe diphthongs. Then we show the different categories of diphthongs that we have: closing diphthongs, sentient diphthongs. Then we move to triphthongs, which is another category of diphthongs plus schwa at the end, and pronunciation with practical exercises based on production from students and IPA transcription to show in details how can we describe vowels and pronounce them using authentic materials from British and American accents. Dear students, in order to improve your pronunciation and to master the course of phonetics, you need to consult some books during your first year. Following selected books provide a comprehensive overview and a practical introduction to English phonetics and phonology. They are suitable for students without prior knowledge about the subject matter of phonetics. You'll find the main concepts of phonetics and illustrations of English pronunciation with a clear and straightforward manner. These essential books provide a good introduction to phonetics with different exercises, suggestions for further readings, and many audio examples on the accompanying CD-ROMs. The first book is entitled English Phonetics and Phonology, a practical course by Peter Roach. In this book, you'll find all the details about English phonetics, starting from the production of English sounds, long vowels, diphthongs and triphthongs, voicing and consonants, phonemes and symbols, English stress, and intonation. So you need this book during your first and second year. The second book that you need is entitled Cambridge English Pronouncing Dictionary by Daniel Jones, 18th edition. In this dictionary you'll find almost every English word with its pronunciation in American and British accents. The other book is entitled Gibson's Pronunciation of English by Alan Crittenden. In this book, you will find everything that concerns English phonetics and its pronunciation.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this introductory lecture in phonetics. I think everybody's heard about phonetics, but hardly anyone knows about it. To begin with, phonetics is a branch of linguistics. As you can see, we have another keyword, which is linguistics. Thus, before all else, I would like to give a brief breakdown of linguistics. Linguistics is the scientific study of language. It aims at providing valid analysis of language structure. Linguistics can be divided or can be categorized into macrolinguistics and microlinguistics. And like the microlinguistics that does not examine the acquisition or the use of language, microlinguistics, on the other hand, examines the significance and application of language in daily life. Language would appear as a set of subsystems referred to as levels of language, such as phonology, that deals with sounds, morphology and syntax, that focuses on words and sentences, semantics, deals with meaning and language use in pragmatics. Apart from dividing language into various tiers, one can refer also to the most important areas in linguistics. To illustrate this point, we have a two-dimensional wheel diagram where we can see levels and areas of linguistics. In the middle of this wheel, there is phonetics, followed by phonology, and around the central phonological hub comes syntax, succeeded by semantics and then pragmatics. Phonology, syntax, and semantics are the pepper and salt of linguistics. Together, they constitute the grammar of a language. These subsystems are referred to as levels of language, as we have already mentioned. The second dimension, however, gives a rough impression on the areas of linguistics, including applied linguistics, computational linguistics, anthropological linguistics, sociolinguistics, stylistics, and so on and so forth. I'm trying to avoid giving extraneous details since you will have all these in your linguistics module. To round the talk off, I want to go back to the beginning, where I first mentioned phonetics. The study of pronunciation consists of two fields, namely phonetics and phonology. Phonetics concerned with a branch of the human speech sound. In phonetics, we refer to individual sounds as phonemes or sounds. We never use the word letters. Each phoneme is normally meaningless in isolation. It becomes meaningful only when combined with other phonemes. For example, sounds like f, de mean nothing separately. If you take the f and write it on the board and ask your students what does this mean, does it have a meaning at all, they will of course respond by saying no. The same goes with the phoneme de. But if you take these two sounds and put them in a word, they will change and get a meaning. For example, the word frog and the word dog. These two words became meaningful. So a phoneme, phonemes, when combined together in various ways, give a meaning. Okay? The field of phonetics is multi-layered. It consists of three subdisciplines according to the production, transmission, and perception of sounds. For the production we advert to as the articulatory phonetics. In this branch, a phonetician aims at describing the production of speech sounds by speech organs. We can say speech organs or articulators. These articulators are the tongue, teeth, nose, lips, etc. Transmission, on the other hand, is interpolated to as acoustic phonetics. Acoustic phonetics. It deals with what happens in the air between the listener and the speaker, i.e., the sound waves in the air. Okay? The last branch is auditory phonetics. As its name implies, auditory phonetics investigates the perception and the identification of speech sounds by the listener. In other words, how sounds are transmitted from the ear to the brain and how the brain interprets the information coming from the ear. I hope I made myself clear in this part. I repeat, phonetics is the study of human speech sounds. It has three different branches. Articulatory describes how speech organs or articulators produce the human speech sounds. The acoustic phonetics deals with the physical properties of speech sound as sound waves on the air, and auditory phonetics, or we call perceptual, it investigates the perception and the identification of speech sounds by the listener, i.e., how sounds are transmitted from the ear to the brain and how the brain interprets the information coming from the ear. I said earlier that pronunciation consists of two fields, phonetics and phonology, and I have also gave a concise definition of what phonetics is. Coming next is phonology. Phonology comes from the ancient Greek phone, which means voice, logi, from the word logos, that means word or speech. What is phonology? Phonology is a branch of linguistics which studies the sound systems of languages. The language sounds are organized into sound system of contrasts, which are analyzed in terms of phonemes. Branches of phonology. In phonology, we have two branches, segmental and suprasegmental. The segmental phonology is based on the segmentation of language into individual speech sounds provided by phonetics. It is interested in the function and possible combinations of language sound system. Suprasegmental phonology is concerned with those features of pronunciation that cannot be segmented because they extend over more than one segment or sound. Such features include stress, rhythm, and intonation. This part of the lecture is a bit complex. Thus, referring to Arabic would simplify things for you. A good question is, where do you find phonetics in Arabic? We find it in التجويد. In Tajweed, we have plenty of examples to help you understand phonetics, such as al-idgham, or what we call in English assimilation. Take, for example, the two words من يعمل. Once assimilated, we pronounce them as one word, من يعمل, من يعمل, or the words من مال, من مال, من مال. The pronunciation changes, but the meaning is still the same. In English is the same thing. We have the greeting phrase, good morning, good morning. But when assimilated, we pronounce it good morning, good morning, good morning. Meaning in the aforementioned examples did not change. However, when we switch one phoneme with another, the meaning changed, like in the words cell and bell, or in Arabic, يدرس تدرس. The first phonemes, when switched with another phonemes, affected the meaning. In this case, we call them distinctive units or distinctive phonemes. Why? Because they affected the meaning, and the meaning has changed when we changed one phoneme with another. Now, what phonology does is studying the relationship between phonemes or sounds. When do they affect meaning and when not? In other words, when they are distinctive units and when they are non-distinctive units. According to Richard and Schmidt, phonology is the study or the description of the distinctive sound units, which are phonemes, of course, of a language and their relationship to one another. Below, you will find a handy-dandy chart to elaborate the differences between phonetics and phonology. Phonetics is a subfield of descriptive linguistics, whereas phonology is an area of theoretical linguistics. Another point is that phonetics is the basis for phonological analysis. While reading this point, I remembered the example of the cake and its ingredients. In fact, each time I try to enrich my knowledge about phonetics and phonology, I find this example. Phonetics is the ingredients and phonology is the cake. This is why we said it is the basis. You cannot have a cake without the ingredients. Another point, phonology is concerned with the abstract grammatical characterization of systems of sounds or signs, and phonetics is the study of the physical aspects of sound. It analyzes the production of all human speech sounds of any language, whereas phonology analyzes the sound patterns of a particular language. The fourth point, phonetics is strictly about audible sounds, what we hear, okay? The auditory branch, if you remember. Phonology, on the other hand, explores the differences between the sounds in a language that change the meaning of an utterance. Notice here we use utterance instead of sentence. Number 5, phonetics is concerned with the form, i.e. the physical properties of sounds. Phonology is concerned with the function, the differences and similarities of sounds. Number 6, in phonetics, the smallest sound unit in a given language is referred to as phoneme. Okay? Individual sound, the smallest unit, the segment, okay, in phonetics is referred to as phoneme. While in phonology, the minimal meaningful sound unit is called a phone or allophone. Phone or allophone. The last point, phonetics deals with the different realization of language phonemes in phonetic transcription of speech sound using square brackets. Phonology deals with phonemic transcription for a specific language using the slashes in phonemic transcription. Let me explain this last point more. We have two types of transcription, the phonemic transcription and the phonetic transcription. The phonetic transcription, we use every single detail. Whatever we pronounce, we write it. For example, the word top. With the T, you feel like there is a puff of air. Top. This puff of air, we put it as a small h above the T. Okay? So when you pronounce, you put square brackets and the word within the square brackets. Take the word, for example, top. You put the T sound and the small h above the T. Okay? While in the phonemic transcription, you just transcribe the word top without any h, without any aspiration, and you use the slashes. Okay, so the phonemic transcription is not detailed. It is the one found in dictionaries, the one we are all familiar with, while the phonetic transcription is more detailed and we use square brackets instead of slashes. I know it's a gobbledygook for you, so let me paraphrase this for you in a more simple way. Phonetics is concerned with segmental features. By segment, I mean individual sound. Okay, the single sounds are used to build up larger units. These segments consist of vowels and consonants. This is the easiest way for you to understand. Phonology is concerned with suprasegmental features. Suprasegmental features. Phonetics with segmental features, individual sounds, while phonology is concerned with suprasegmental features. What do I mean by suprasegmental features? They are larger units. They are not individual sounds. They are larger units of speech. For example, the stress, intonation, rhythm, utterances, phrases, and so on and so forth. Phonology is not limited to single sounds like phonetics. It extends over syllables, words, and phrases. So if you want to know how to pronounce or produce sounds, you just go to phonetics. For example, you have the two phonemes p and b. Both are bilabial, plosive, or stops. P is voiceless and b is voiced. But if you want to check how these phonemes change the meaning in the words, for example, pray and bray, I just go to phonology. Why do we teach pronunciation, or why do we learn pronunciation? You can still have a good command of grammar and lexis, but mispronouncing phonemes can be difficult for a speaker from another community, from another language community to understand you. According to Gerald Kelly in his book How to Teach Pronunciation, good pronunciation inhibits successful communication. He adds, when a learner says, for example, soap, in a situation such as restaurant where they should have said soup, the inaccurate production of a phoneme can lead to misunderstanding on the part of the waitress, at least. Also, the inaccurate use of stress can cause problems. Let's consider the word contest. Context is a word of two syllables. If you stress the first syllable, then it is a noun by saying, for example, contest. Contest. Contest here means competition, and it is a noun. But if you stress the second syllable of the same word, we say contest. Contest. Here it is a verb and means oppose. Hence, the word stress changes both meaning and the part of speech. The same goes with, for example, present and present, content and content. So, due to the confusing nature of the English spelling, it is particularly important to learn English pronunciation in terms of phonemes rather than letters of the alphabet. It is important to learn English phonetics mainly because there is not always a correspondence between the English spoken form and the written form. One sound may have many graphical representation, and many words are not pronounced as written. I will give you this list of words, try to pronounce them, and then score yourself. You will have 1 minute.
For example, in English, the vowel E can be written as EA, like in the word read, or we can find the long vowel E as IE, as in believe. We can find it also as double E, as in sleep, or we can find it as EI, as in receive. On the other hand, the English sound F may be represented as the letter F or the combination PH, like in frame or photograph, or even as GH, like in enough. One vowel can be pronounced differently. For example, if you take the letter A, can be produced in as A, like in cat, as O, as in last, as A, like in shape, or A, like in shortage, or all. Now check your pronunciation. In the first word, chaos. Number 2, you. Number 3, bow. Number 4, thorough. Number 5, dough. Number 6, hues. Number 7, simile. Number 8, breathe. Number 9, Audi. Number 10, Psalm. If you have scored less than 10, then you need to check English Pronunciation Dictionary each time you come across a new word that you don't know its pronunciation.
Whose pronunciation are we describing in phonetics? Students might wonder about the model we are describing in phonetics. A standard variety is the form of a language that is generally associated with educated speakers. The standard variety of English in the UK is called Standard British English Received Pronunciation, or RP, which is used in our lectures. The standard variety spoken in the United States is called General American English, which is not used in our context. In Algeria, we teach and learn RP as our model to illustrate English phonetics and phonology. RP is also the accent used in British dictionaries and textbooks. RP is the most prestigious accent of English. For example, it was first called Public School Pronunciation, then renamed as Received Pronunciation, or simply RP in the 1920s. RP was initially described by the British phonetician Daniel Jones in the first edition of his English Pronouncing Dictionary in 1917. In England, they often associate RP with Southern British English speakers. RP usually is associated with the monarchy and the royal people. We come now to the summary of the lecture. In this lecture, we have introduced phonetics basics, the definition, the study of the physical properties of human speech sounds. Number 2, in phonetics, we refer to individual sounds as phonemes or sounds, never letters. All phonetic transcription is done with phonetic slashes. This one is found in dictionaries, the Oxford, Cambridge, any dictionary. Number 2, we have been through the fields of phonetics, or the branches of phonetics. The articulatory phonetics, which means how sounds are produced. Acoustic phonetics, that deals with the physical properties of sounds, or the waves that go from the speaker to the listener. The third branch is the auditory phonetics, how sounds are perceived, with the ear and interpreted with the brain. The other point that we have seen in the lecture is the system of representation. It's phonetic transcription. In IPA transcription, one phone usually equals one sound. Time for research. Task 1. Write a paper about the main features of phonetic studies and their real use in improving English pronunciation. Task 2. What is the difference between a letter and a sound? Task 3. In what way are phonetics and phonology similar or different? Thank you for your attention.